All right, welcome back to episode 5 of our podcast that still does not have a name. I think we should name it pretty soon, Ian. I think that needs to happen.
Yeah,
Um, back here again with Ian Parks, and today we are going to continue the conversation of last episode. Where we had a great conversation and ended the episode talking about the importance of optionality, right? Giving people options when they want to talk to your business, when they want to buy your product, when they want to adopt your solution. The ebbs and flows of that PLG universe. Um, so let's start with the buying habits over the years. Ian, we both have been in this SaaS rodeo for a while, and in the selling rodeo for a longer while. How do you think buying habits have changed over the last few years?
yeah. Um, I guess the biggest part of it is the access to information in the first place. Most people now want to do the majority of their buying decision up front before they even ever, talk to anyone in a business. I've read a really good article not too long ago by Channing Ferrer, HubSpot, aficionado.
Great guy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But, really talked about that notion that, you want to give people as much of a chance to understand about your company up front, so that actually when they know that they're nearly at their decision and they may have narrowed down, to a couple of people, a couple of companies they want to talk to, that actually they've been through that process. And something we talk about at Stock Press quite a lot, and it's really dear to us, is how do you create the sense of the experience that someone's going to get when they get into the product from the moment they connect with the business and they connect with the brand. So, I think the importance around like how are people making their buying decision is like if you haven't done the hard yards up front, that during that research process they're able to kind of find out about your company and then ultimately get to the point where they can buy in the way that they want to buy. And I think this is probably going to be the question I'll bounce back to you. Then, things become quite difficult. And, I think in our world, we've always considered that it's important to have different options to buy. So maybe next talking point around this is like, well, what are those options? If you're giving people as much information up front, but you want to give them optionality, how are we approaching that?
Yeah. And I would also add, so the this will be like a two-part answer, because thinking through this, I think there's also like my mind races when I'm like putting myself in that buyer's shoes, like even before getting involved with your product or service, right? When I know that I have a problem, or know that I have a need and I want that solved, and this is just my personal opinion, I kind of feel that you buy in three different, there are like three different buckets, right? You either make a purchase decision through the experience of somebody else, right? Asking for referrals, like, hey, like I started running, I'm running the New York Marathon, and I bought like a gazillion of products for like muscle recovery, and I asked a bunch of friends, like, hey, what do you do to recover your body? And I, spent thousands of dollars in these products like that because of my friends' experiences, right? So that's number one. Number two is your own experience, right? So trying new products, look and feel. I use the car analogy, or I actually told a story about the car, the last, not the last car I bought, but the one before. And the car analogy is it fits perfectly. It's like when you are going to buy a car, doing the test drive. That's also important. So you get to get a look and feel for what you want to buy. And then number three is that sort of like sales assisted is getting assistance and getting somebody to understand, even if the product is easy to buy, there are some lingering questions that maybe you want to ask somebody from the company that you might get more information besides, a chatbot, besides, a blog post, or the information that is given to your fingertips. I feel that there are different ways that buyers buy based on, the information that they get before, getting involved with any type of company, and then after, they can call your business, they can, ask for a referral, and speak to, you guys might have a friend in common. It's like, hey, I looked at Stop Press, I want to talk to Ian, can you introduce me to Ian? And then just chatting on the website, or going to an event, or even cold buying the business. That actually happened to me a couple of years ago. This gentleman heard about the business that I was working at, showed up to the door. It's like, hey, I would love like a demo of the product. And
Yeah. Which
yeah,
is all well and
that was a
good.
fun experience.
Like
Yeah.
this is the thing, is we want to give people those options to go on that journey themselves and get to the appropriate point where they feel like they can make that decision, whether it's all of those things that you covered there. It's that self-serve element. It's that they're reading enough content to get in there, and then they might want to have that moment with a salesperson, or actually they just want to bypass all of that in the first place and just go straight to a human conversation about the product in that context. It's like everything though, like the more options you give people, the more challenges it presents. And I think this is something that we talk about internally all the time is, you want to make sure that that experience is great across every touch point, but, there are distinct challenges. So from your experience, when you give people optionality across those different routes in, like what are some of the challenges that then creates, whether it's buyer side or actually from our point of view?
Yeah, I mean, I think it impacts on the experience, because I mean, it also depends on the buyer, of course. But I personally, like the way I buy, I like to have at least two options, right, to compare. At most three. More than three is like, I'm gonna waste my time.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel that giving people too many options is going to just drag their decision process, and just the details are going to be so minuscule that they're not going to really matter. Sometimes having too many options is good, like when you go to a restaurant and you have like 8 different types of chicken, right? But I kind of feel that it most of the times, if not all of the times, it's just too much to
Yeah.
bear, right? So I feel that giving people too many options might actually impact the customer experience, because they're kind of lost in translation. They don't know what
Yeah.
to pick. Uh, like when you go to a restaurant, there's 8 different types of chicken, and then you have to ask the server. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just think there are a couple of things that I think about the challenges in there as it relates to, the way that we're continuing to kind of grow stock press, change the narrative, and, or certainly develop the narrative. And yeah, optionality is really important, but like also making people feel like they're not going to get overwhelmed through that buying process, like you say, is incredibly important. And, there's then that knock-on effect of you've got to manage the data right, because if you've got actually these different data points for, self-serve versus sales assist versus, direct sale, then you've got to make sure that all that data connects into what's the right action. And, we talk about this as part of our team with those like wow moments. How can you create those wow moments? And if you don't create a wow moment, like what's the next step after that? And ultimately, I suppose the more refined you can get around how many of those wow moments exist, the theory is the better we get at them being able to kind of convert people if they're not ready at that point in time to buy, but they're still interested. Or actually, we've been able to gather some intelligence around them to work out what the context is. So, like I said, I think, your kind of conversation there really kind of covered the buyer side of things. I think, yeah, putting that optionality together around the business is another layer of complexity. And actually, going back to that mantra that we talk about is, you can't build simplicity in, but you can take complexity out. That is like a huge part of helping people get to that buying decision in a way where they feel empowered, but they don't feel overwhelmed at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, and so the the other side of the spectrum, right? The other side of the coin, because following the restaurant example, going to that restaurant where you're forced into one menu. I personally hate like the menu types because I have no options. So giving people too many options, yeah, that has some drawbacks.
Yeah.
But giving no options, I feel that's kind of a little bit worse. Uh, but what are the benefits of giving people options?
Yeah, I think there's an element of like consumer loyalty that can be developed very, very early on. And I actually think about this a lot. For me, the brands and the businesses and the tools that we've used in stock press, I think you get a very good sense from very early on as to whether a tool is going to be a right fit for you, or a brand is going to be a right fit for you, or the experience is going to be a right fit. So I think it comes down to empowerment. I think it's about, if you can give people information and they feel that they've made that decision on the most part themselves and actually got to a conclusion that they found the thing that feels right for them, then I think you get that element of them being a true champion. And I think there are those things that naturally we gravitate towards and have deeper affinities with when we feel like that we have found them ourselves. Like, it's like whether it's a clothing brand or I always think about bands. I love music. I always love that element of, you see a band early when they're playing at that tiny little venue. That's where they're going to get you for life, because you naturally have that deep affinity because you feel like it's something that you own and that you found. And I think that's a big part of this like optionality around buying, but also making sure that people feel a part of that process from very early on. So like I said, I think what we've really kind of talked about most here, I suspect, is balance. You want to give people the options, you want to give people the information, but you're really only doing it so that it feels like they have been truly empowered to make the right buying decision. um and like I said, there are massive complexities when it comes to running a business like that, especially not just when you give people optionality, but you might be talking across the whole spectrum of business as well. Like, we talk to SMBs and we talk to enterprise companies. And actually, the experience in terms of buying is very, very different for those. It doesn't mean that you can't do both, and it doesn't mean you can't give both of those optionality. It does probably change the way that you have to present the experiences on both sides. And I'm wondering, in our normal way of kind of stumbling on a subject for the next conversation, whether actually that's something that's really important, is when people can come in through these different routes, is like, how do they get the same experience with the brand and with the tool, regardless of whether they've come through that kind of self-serve kind of PLG motion, or actually they've come through a sales assist moment, or they've gone through that kind of direct process where we may have reached out to them, furnished them with some information, and then we're kind of taking them on that journey. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great segue of talking, how to, as a business, how to make sure that you can protect the client experience regardless of how your client wants to engage it and
Yeah.
buy from you.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, yeah. I think that's where my brain spends most of its time now, is that connection between decision and experience with the product. Like, if you get that right, it's so deep and so powerful. So yeah, I reckon that's great to have a chat about next time. Love it.
Perfect. As always, it's been a pleasure. Great to chat. I love these episodes. Like our minds race for these. Hope that people are liking these. If you have any questions, comments, reach out to us, comment, share, and we'll see you next time for episode 6. Have a good one.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.